This book that I read a few years back called Range.
Okay.
And this is a contrarian view, saying that now the world needs people with more range.
Okay.
Where you can be a jack of all trades, don't have to be a master of anything.
Could you give one example of what you just spoke about, where you were able to connect dots maybe faster?
99% of people you will meet are from non-finance background. Somebody is in the media business, advertising, somebody's in manufacturing. We got a bunch of stand-up guys, Kunal Kamra, Atul Khatri, and a whole bunch to do custom material for us. First day, my pressure cooker CT went off because the clip wasn't there and all the dal was on the ceiling. So my roommate saying, I hope you're not going to do this every night. I do that tattooed on my brain. Like I had one potential customer in Hyderabad, where I thought I was making a fancy presentation about the global economy, etc., etc. And after 20 minutes, he said, wait a minute, Amit, are you done with your monologue?
He actually said that to you on your face.
On my face. And this is again cultural things that you realize. So in India, most people don't like asking questions.
Okay.
We are trained from school days not to interrupt the teacher in class. Keep quiet, take your notes.
चुपचाप करो, बैठो, निकल जाओ.
You want a girlfriend, you have to sell.
खुद को बेचो.
Right? You have to sell. You do poetry, right? You're communicating. You're selling your concept.
Selling your thoughts, selling your ideas.
So there's this story about 4 monkeys who are around a tree. So this one monkey tries to climb the tree, and जैसे वो चढ़ता है ऊपर, बाकी तीनों के ऊपर पानी गिरता है. But everyone knows ये पेड़ पे नहीं चढ़ने का. Nobody knows why. But because it was वो कंट्रोल प्रोसेस हो गया था, वो कंटिन्यू हो रहा है. It's a third person story, but you go to Dubai for business and he thought he had great meetings, and after every meeting they would say inshallah we'll do business, and he thought he had a great meeting. But he realized after a point that inshallah means God willing, which I am not willing. God willing to do business, but I am not interested.
धूप में निकलो, घटाओं में नहाकर देखो. जिंदगी क्या है, किताबों को हटाकर देखो. Hi, my name is Shah. I'm a young 25-year-old second generation entrepreneur with a great passion for people and stories. And the whole idea of Living Legacies is to have a channel or a podcast where we have people from different facets of life, whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it is sports, whether it is music, poetry, but really have people from different walks of life come and share their experiences, and for all of us to learn as much as we can from these conversations. Today, it's a very special day for me as we've shot our first episode with Amit Rathi. In this episode, we've covered a lot about how to sell, the art of selling, how important it is for an entrepreneur to know the true sort of value of the art of selling, and how Amit took Anand Rathi from practically zero scale and made it into one of India's largest wealth management firms. It's now a public listed company with over 8,000 crore market cap. And we've also sort of tried to have different conversations about his passions, whether it's his passion for DJing, whether it's his passion for fitness, and how all of these experiences really shape us and what we can learn from all these experiences. I hope you enjoy it. So thank you so much, Amit, for being here today.
My pleasure, Shaurya.
Genuinely, I mean, before we start, I really want to share this on the bottom of my heart, that you've been a true sort of inspiration for me in different facets, whether it's your journey as a second-gen entrepreneur and really growing Anand Rathi into one of India's leading wealth management firms, or whether it's your second stint as a first-gen entrepreneur with QI Capital, or it's your passion or the thirst for learning. We share a common love for poetry, Urdu, and now you've also gotten really into the whole world of fitness. So thank you so much, genuinely, for being here, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And the whole idea of Living Legacies, the podcast that I'm starting, is to sort of deep dive into different facets of life. And recently, I was listening to one of your talks, and you said that success in life is not just monetary success or financial success, but sort of a culmination of so many different things.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I'm trying to capture through Living Legacies, where we don't just have conversations about business or sport or entertainment, but we try and sort of, deep dive into different facets and how we can learn from every experience and how each experience shapes us in different ways. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much. So I feel like a lot of what we do and a lot of our actions somewhere deep down stem from our childhood. And I'd be sort of very curious to know about how your childhood was like.
Oh, it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
My school teachers or my parents, friends, very, very interesting. I think I'm blessed to have a fantastic childhood.
Okay.
We were sort of a upper middle class family. Dad was working for the Birlas. Most of my growing years spent initial few years in Calcutta, but largely pretty much in Bombay. Schooling, college, CA, before my MBA in New York. But just I think I was a naughty kid.
Okay.
And naughty with very close friends and extremely reserved with unknown people. And my only best friend, I think, growing up was books. So I would go to people's homes, family, friends, we would go for parties. I would carry books or find any piece of book, newspaper, Reader's Digest, and sit in the corner on the sofa and just find a way to hide in books. But with my friends, I was super naughty, super, I used to run clubs to organize fun and fairs, dandiyas, play cricket, rappel down my 21-story building. The teachers in school thought I was an angel. And so the PTAs used to be more my mom complaining to the teachers rather than the other way around. Sort of a mixed bag, but I think it was super fun growing up. I think I was surrounded by, family who sort of set the right values, but also friends who came from very diverse backgrounds. And the area where we stayed on the Dependency Road, we had a building where we had people, I would say, across economic strata. So we would play with our, Dhobi's son to playing with some of the richest kids in the block.
Sure.
It was just a community which was very different. So things that I don't think today's kids get exposed to.
Right. Right.
So so when we do fun and fairs, we would have to go on the right stick posters of the fair. So, buying that RR Road gum, glue, making a big pot in the night, then going in, sticking posters and eating pav bhaji at a Shiv Sagar or Santosh Sagar late in the night. Super fun stuff growing up. But I think books were my
your best friend.
Best friend.
And which school did you go to?
I went to a school called Hindi Vidya Bhavan.
Okay.
That's in Marine Drive. It's run by the Somani Trust. So they run GD Somani and Hindi Vidya Bhavan.
Okay.
It's an English medium school, even though the name is Hindi Vidya Bhavan. But a fantastic school. I think not as well known, not an elite school, but I think it's some of the smartest kids. We had a great principal, Parsi lady who ran the school phenomenally well.
Okay.
And some of the biggest stock market giants over the last 25, 30 years are actually studying in that school.
Oh, really?
And which you come to know later. At that time, of course, you don't know.
So who all have been there from the stock market world?
Uday Kotak,
Okay.
Rakesh Jhunjhunwala,
Oh, wow.
Vansali. So there's a lot of people who studied in that school.
Do you think there could be any, linkage to your early education or education versus, let's say, having a niche like stock markets? Does the school also have some role to play there, or it's more your family and the other facets?
It's more family. The school just sort of, because that school had a wide mix of, Gujarati, Marwari, Parsis, fairly motley crew of people, but who came from backgrounds which were also all over the place. So teaches you how to hustle.
Yeah.
So the school environment taught us how to hustle. And adjust, to pretty much anything in life.
Sure.
So that was the sort of takeaway from school. But the business side came more from family.
Okay.
My uncle, my chacha, was in the stock markets in the early 80s. He himself became a broker. And for me, in every Marwari family, and his dad was very focused that I spend, don't waste away my time after school, after college weekends. I would go to the office, prepare trial balances, accounts. We go to my chacha's office. So most people partied in FYJC, SYJC. I would have to go to the office, in the stock market in 91, 92. Saw the one Ashar Mehta boom.
Right.
Got the opportunity to visit the trading ring a few times. But sit there and do work, essentially. So then once you are in the stock market, the vibe and energy is so powerful that you get sucked in. And, the biggest draw is the money. So I figured a way to trade. One of my chacha's sub-brokers, he encouraged me to start a trading account. And that time there was no concept of KYC. I said, when my dad comes to know, he'll kill me. See, opened an account in the name of Amit Maheshwari.
Okay.
And those days, there was this concept of Badla. You could buy stocks on credit and not pay for it for a month. And you could keep rolling it over. So essentially, you could leverage yourself. And the broker, because he was my chacha's sub-broker, didn't even take a margin from it.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
those days, my pocket money used to be a few hundred rupees. And, trading through this 91, 92, I made a few lakhs.
In
at the peak,
91, 92.
and lost it in 3 days when the bubble collapsed. So, but the stock market chaska was born. So, it was truly there.
So, taking a step back, was like, growing up, was your father strict with you? Was the environment at home very sort of rigid and strict, or was it liberal and...
It was depending on what mood he was in.
Okay.
So my dad is a very disciplined person. So he was extremely strict. And I think, one thing we were all scared of was his anger. And really frightened if he got angry. But as long as you did well in school, and especially in math, it was fine. So the only thing he would look at in the report card was math, but I don't think he ever came to school.
Never.
And so we had to find ways, and mom would protect us in some way or the other.
Right.
So dad was, so I remember studying for my CA, and he would draw up a schedule and saying, let's, your study leaves, where you study, prepare for CA exams. And, the way he would say, okay, what's your study plan for the next 2 months when you have this break? And he would say, let's look at the time you have in the day. And he would start with, okay, you have, how much time you take to brush your teeth, get fresh in the morning, shower, lunch, sleep. Deduct all that. He said, you still have 17 hours left or 16 hours left, and fill that in with studies. So you make sure that, we drew up this extensive plan. And the moment you go to work, the plan would go for a toss. I go to my mom's crib, put on Tom and Jerry. It sounds very sleepy today. Or let me go play cricket. So 8 hours balancing. I was DJing 6 days before my CA final exams. So it was a
mixed bag. Mom was more sort of lenient.
Mom was far more, So mom was far more protective.
Okay.
And gave far more leeway.
Okay.
But dad was the other extreme.
He was a disciplinarian.
Very strict.
And where did the love for DJing come from?
Honestly, it's surprising. I don't, in my entire family, I think, dad's side, mom's side, I haven't seen anyone really being fond of music except my mama.
Okay.
He used to have his old cassettes. We used to listen to old Hindi songs. But you listen to them and never, but somewhere in the 9th, 10th grade, somehow got into, the first few cassettes, and dad got some cassettes from the US, I think in 82, 83, the first Bruce Springsteen album, the original. So you start listening, the interest grows to the point where, again, I'm one of those guys who will try my hand at anything. So a very close friend was having a party one day, and we said, why do you need a DJ? We'll only play. And we actually convinced him to let us play. And after that first gig, he said, we're not bad. So then we said, we can actually make money off it. And then we put that in the early 90s, we start between 10,000, 15,000 rupees a gig, which is a lot of money. But that money and we do 1 gig a month, but that money allowed us to build a music collection for every month. So you go and get cassettes recorded, buy CDs, and kept building, and just became passion. So till 94, 95, I think, like till 96, till before my CA exams, we probably did the last gig.
Wow. So all over Bombay.
All over Bombay.
And would mainly Hindi music or a mix of...
So we were, English mostly.
Okay.
But I would like to be one of the first DJs that introduced contemporary Bollywood music into the party circuit there.
Oh, really?
Back then. Nowadays, it's the norm. So you only hear new Bollywood music.
Yeah.
Back then, it was mostly older Bollywood music like the Mehboobas and Sholets of the world. But playing contemporary Govindas stuff. Though now it's annoying where you hear too much Bollywood music. So now my passion is more house.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that somewhere this love for music and having this whole journey in music, has it helped you in business as well?
I think, I would say in business per se, it helps you just as in business, one of the core things in business is, I've always done sales.
Right.
Effectively, and every entrepreneur, everybody is always selling.
Yeah.
And when you're selling, you're selling to people, you're effectively selling yourself as a person, as a personality, as an individual. And your ability to have conversations and understand and build a connect with people
happens
through the interest. So you can't just be, a cut and dry figure who's got, finance as the only thing that they do all their life.
Sure.
And then nothing interesting
Around
it, right?
Sure.
So music was one of those aspects, and those are the kind of things that's how, so it could be, sometimes we have had clients where the whole discussions has been around spirituality. With somebody else, it could be cars. It could be something else,
Sure.
technology. It could be, saying what's the latest watch feature that you've, so just being interesting person that people can relate to.
Sure.
Is important. The other, of course, is that music, of course, more as a continued passion. It takes my mind away.
Helps you de-stress.
Helps me completely, not just de-stress, but just focus on something which is fun. And even if you're in the car, going between one meeting to the next, you've got 20 minutes. That 20 minutes is fun.
Yeah, it's fun time.
It's fun time.
Fun time. But what I thought was very interesting is that I think something that I took away from that is, if as an entrepreneur or in any field, sales is key, and you'll sell more if you're able to connect with your people, and you'll connect better if you have multiple interests, because each person will have sort of different interests.
Yeah.
So that's sort of interesting, because ultimately the more interests you have, it's also helping you to be a better entrepreneur and be a better professional.
Because you're also able to judge. I think somewhere, I this book that I read a few years back called Range,
Okay.
which is more about, there's this one theory that you need to do 10,000 hours of something very
Yeah.
good to,
I think Malcolm Gladwell someone.
to
Yeah.
be super
10,000
good at
hours.
something. And this is a contrarian view, saying that now the world needs people with more range,
Okay.
where you can be a jack of all trades, don't have to be a master of anything,
Wow.
but the ability to connect the dot between different fields. And that's something that's actually helped me a lot in business, because one of the things that I think I've been fortunately, things that have worked for me has been through my ability to connect dots into the future of things that seem unconnected to the normal person who's doing this day in and day out.
Okay.
But when you're able to take a step back and see how the world is evolving,
Yeah.
they're able to connect dots, and that comes from how many diverse experiences you bring to the table.
Wow. Could you give one example of what you just spoke about, where you were able to connect dots maybe faster? Some example that you could share.
So I'll give you one recent in the sense, 4 or 5 years old. When I was building the wealth management business, had become reasonably successful. We were trying to go out and target the mass affluent. So typically the business targets people with $1 million and higher.
Okay.
And we said, why can't we go to people with 20 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 1 crore, who probably have the same needs, but it's too expensive for us to get human advisors in front of them. The cost of delivery of advice becomes too high. So that's why nobody's been able to successfully service them.
Okay.
And, a lot of banks traditionally advise those customers, or the most customers are attached to banks, and banks cross-sell. But there's been a lot of mis-selling through RMs, etc. So customer experience has been bad. And we said, how do we solve that? And we said, you're not going to go present financial concepts to somebody who's come. 99% of the people you'll meet are from non-finance background. Somebody is in the media business, advertising, somebody's in manufacturing. How do you hold their attention through a digital channel?
Okay.
And be able to deliver financial advice through an app or videos or whatever, right? So let's say you're doing this YouTube video and explaining what is inflation, purchasing power, what should be the compounded annual growth rate, etc., and why equity. It's boring. And one of the fun insights that we came up with is, I'm a big, huge fan of this sitcom called Seinfeld in the US, and something that I've loved. I've watched every episode n number of times, and I said, you know what? Can we do something fun and deliver concepts for stand-up comedy as part of the process?
Okay.
So we got a bunch of stand-up guys, Kunal Kamara, Atul Khatri, and a whole bunch, to do custom material for us.
Okay.
And we said, these are concepts that I want jokes around.
Wow.
So it could be inflation, for example. It could be why equities versus real estate. Things that we wanted to communicate. Why is liquidity important? Etc. The taxes, all of that. And so these guys wrote some brilliant content. We actually did a live shoot with a live audience.
Wow.
And then were able to integrate these snippets of 1 minute to 2 minute jokes with actual content. So let's say we have a video where I've delivered some content explaining concept, and here's Kunal Kamra coming in, explaining that concept in a hilarious manner. Now suddenly that concept has registered with the customer. Now in 15 minutes, we've been able to deliver a wealth management pitch that typically takes us hour and a half, 2 hours, and the concepts delivered to people. And then we had 3 versions of that, one with censored jokes, one uncensored, and one without jokes. If you actually met a serious guy saying, okay, cut the jokes and just deliver the dry content.
Sure.
But that app saw a client conversion rate of 40%. So for every 10 people that saw those videos, 4 people signed up.
That's
massive.
That's what is the usual?
So usually you have
Number?
1 to 2%.
So 1 to 2 became 40.
40. And simply that love for something which is completely different, stand-up comedy, and the finance guy will not think of and saying, can I sell
really
to clients
interesting.
sounding non-serious
That's really interesting. That's a very interesting.
and bring it into...
That's amazing. So to be able to connect the dots, to be able to think out of the box, that's key.
And what I'm doing right now on the quant investing side, essentially, so while I've done financial markets from a fundamental perspective, I've also been a tech geek. I've never studied technology, but I could code C++, Linux in the 80s.
Okay.
And again, thanks to my dad, he got me one, ZX Spectrum computer, which is, I don't think you would have seen it in your
I
lifetime.
don't even know what that is.
So the 64 KB computer which you connect to the TV.
Okay.
To save a program or load a program, you're a cassette player and you have to record or save on cassettes. And if you loaded the program, the cassette speed was off a little bit. There was a speed, you used to have a Philips player where you control the speed of the cassette so the program would load correctly. You would load a program 5 minutes, which would show you nice colorful circles on the screen. But it was painful, but it was fun when you saw computers there, simple games you could build, and then got into coding. But then through work was very interested in technology, so I've done a lot of work across, the cloud, digital space. And then in our markets, there was this whole wave of algorithmic trading where technology is coming in a big way using statistical techniques, machine learning, and in some point even AI, coming in. And just because of my comfort with technology, numbers, quant statistics, and knowing the wealth management business, what we're trying to build right now is a very interesting business that sort of brings traditional wealth management, statistics, and cutting-edge technology together to try and build a business out.
Taking a step back again, when you sort of did your CA, school CA, and then you went to New York for your MBA. So 2 questions. How was the CA experience like? Does it help today when you're running a business? And then how was the whole transition from a life in Bombay going into New York, and what was that like?
So I think the CA was probably effectively my undergraduate degree because I did college in Sydenham, attended 13 lectures over the course of the years I was there. You're more in the canteen or more at work. And CA was effectively, so I was in the first batch of students that were allowed to do their CA along with their BCom.
Okay.
Back in 93.
अच्छा उसके पहले BCom खत्म करने के बाद CA
बात करते थे तो पहले in the 70s and early 80s तक allowed था, then they stopped it. So this was reintroduced with a course called Foundation course.
Okay.
Of course, now they've kept changing the labels of all these exams. So I was 19 and you go into a CA firm, and I went to a very interesting CA firm called Loda & Company. At that point, it was one of the largest chartered accounting auditing firms in the country. Audits of some of the largest conglomerates and lot of mid-sized businesses as well. And the exposure that one got there was phenomenal. So I've spent months in Hyderabad, places like Chandrapur, in remote places, in factories, meeting all sorts of people. When you're 19, 20, 21, it is a 19, 20, it's an amazing experience to be seeing real world businesses operate. You're auditing them. You're studying the position power, you're questioning, looking at data, and the understanding of audit, law, taxation, accounting, very useful for me at least. And at that time, a lot of friends were hanging out with girls and I would say, you're wasting your time. Why I wish you study the Companies Act. Found useful in life. Though, now I disagree, but at that time,
you disagree now.
that point, you think, you get a different high because you're getting so much knowledge. And it's one course that sort of drills massive knowledge in both ways, through the curriculum, but also through the practical training, which is massive. So huge learning experience, and that sort of made me grow into far more confident
It helped you in terms of...
So that, the technical skills that you pick up. And then the whole transition to New York was very different. And I think before that, not traveled to many places outside of, let's say, Thailand, where my aunt used to live one holiday, or Nepal or Singapore. I think you've just done few, you didn't have the global exposure, and you landed to New York City. And suddenly I was this hardcore Marwadi boy who loved home food, dal, roti, sabzi. So I learned to cook everything. Went there, and the first day my pressure cooker CT went off because the clip wasn't there, and all the dal was on the ceiling. So my roommate saying, I hope you're not going to do this every night. It took me a month to adjust. I lost 5 kgs in the first month. Then finally discovered decent vegetarian food, which is now of course available plenty, but mid-90s it wasn't as and cheap enough cost for you to be able to afford it on a daily basis. But the MBA was, and New York City was a phenomenal experience. I think that was the second experience which changed me completely and taught me how to market.
Okay.
So I learned a lot of things around finance, derivatives, valuation, some of the best professors in the world. But what I learned, I think the big takeaway for me was how to network a room of 100 people, get the confidence to walk up and say, I'm Amit Rathi, and strike up a conversation with a random stranger and not be, hesitant. So it just, and the ability to sell. That was, while the content was there earlier in the CA and whatever, but I think this sort of rounded up the whole ability. And my belief, as you heard before, is that selling is the most important skill that any individual needs to have.
Sure. But how did you learn that in New York? What were the things that helped you become confident?
So there were 2-3 things. One is, of course, you are with a very diverse international community. You're in a city which is as diverse as they come. So you start to adapt. One is adapting and saying that, hey, I'm actually fine, I'm doing well. You start to do well in your classes. And there's a lot of formal education. So I actually did one course where we had somebody, if I'm not mistaken, from Merrill, she's a Wharton grad, MBA, who take video. We had a whole course on presentation skills. And every week we'd go in, make a presentation, video recorded. The class would give feedback on what you could do better, what you missed. You're observing other people do it. And by the time the course finished, from how to make the best slides to how to best hold the audience to gestures, to a lot of stuff you learn formally. But I think outside of that, just being put in so many places. So you have corporate, sort of receptions where companies come in and you have to work the room. You just go up and talk to people. So you overcome, and I think the big skill that you learn is, in India, we take a lot of things for granted because we're dealing with the same sort of people.
Okay.
Now suddenly you're talking to somebody who's French. You observe, is that actually understanding what I'm saying? And I'm hearing hard because sometimes you are not picking up their accent. Or it could be some Asian person. You just learn to listen and observe a lot more, which is actually one of the key skills in selling.
Listening and observing.
Observing, right? Because you're seeing whether the other person is actually with you in that conversation, and are they getting, and are you understanding what they're trying to say, and are you going to communicate truly? So the first most important skill is the ability to sort of,
really
you observe
engage
and listen.
Wow.
To softer signals, it could be how they talk, but how they behave, how they, and social differences, right? Different people from different countries behave in different manners. So those are skill sets that you start
picking up.
So
that is definitely something that you should try and do as much as possible and as early as possible.
Because that's what you're learning. Because, as we grow older, a lot of things get hardwired in our brain very quickly. And our ego kicks in. And the ability to sort of adjust and accommodate to a changing environment becomes lesser and lesser. So my belief is, the time where I tried to learn skiing when I was 22, I struggled. I was scared of falling, right? But I was seeing 7-8-year-old kids go off the bunny slopes to very advanced slopes very, very quickly. So I felt like a fool. But so I think the earlier you learn, the better.
Try and keep pushing yourself outside your comfort zone from as early as you can, and as much as you can.
As much as you can.
Sure. And after your MBA in New York, Did you continue working there or you directly?
I directly came back. So my challenge was that I finished my CA and my dad had just left the Birla's his career and he started Anand Rathi Financial Services, the whole group. And we discussed it that this is something that I wanted to do. So we started that. He quit in 93.
In 1993. He quit.
1993. So 94 the firm had just started.
And at that point, what was it called?
Anand Rathi.
Anand
Shares
Rathi.
and stockbrokers. Anand Rathi
Shares and
Securities. Yeah. And I had my last year of CA, so I joined him as an industrial trainee at that point. And the challenge was it was a new setup. So for me to go to business school, I applied to business schools. Most business schools said, Duke, Wharton gave me 1 year, 2 year efforts and said, more work experience. I was 21 when I was the youngest kid at Stern as well.
You went directly after your CA.
Because the business had just started and I said, if I'm going to wait here for 2-3 years, I'm not going to be able to do anything this, significantly worthwhile because I know I'm going to go away. So it's best that whatever education that I have to, if I had the luxury of waiting and going, that would have been better. But I said, I've got a lot of exposure through my CA already of the real world and I didn't have time on my side. So I had to make that decision to go quickly and then come back.
So you came back. At that point, you were mainly the company was doing mainly brokering. Was that brokerage was the
brokerage? Dad also ran a consulting business, but I was not involved in. Where he's consulting companies and turnaround situations across India and Southeast Asia, and we had a small investment banking business. So what I was involved in initially was setting up and sort of scaling the institutional equities business, so research, investment banking. That's where I was sort of majorly spending my time for the first 2 years.
Okay. At that point, do you remember what the revenues were like?
We were doing about 25-30 crores.
At that point?
At that point, yeah.
And which year was this?
This was 2000.
2000?
Yeah.
Which was sizable.
So we'd become sizable. We'd become one of the largest retail brokers in the country. So we're one of the largest firms already. Because one thing Dad had done very well, professionalized a lot of the business.
Okay.
Especially the retail brokerage side. And the other side is what I was trying to build at that time.
So when you came in, what was the division that you were building?
The institutional equities and investment banking business.
Institutional equity and investment banking. Could you explain a little more in detail what that is, what happens there?
Equities is where, you sort of advise large investors like mutual funds, pension funds, foreign FIIs, insurance companies in investing in the markets. And what they expect is for you to research companies, visit companies, share knowledge, ideas, notes with them. And if they like it, they trade through you and give you commissions income. Investment banking is where you do mergers and acquisitions or IPOs, where you take companies public.
Okay.
Where also you are largely selling to the same institutional customers.
Okay.
So it's sort of a wholesale business. The retail brokerage business is where you're dealing with all individuals generally who are trading, buying and selling shares at that time.
So what was the size of the team like at that point?
We were about 200 people, 200 plus. And but 2001 we had a setback. So Dad was actually the president of Bombay Stock Exchange.
Okay.
And we had some investigation, which was sort of a politically driven thing at that time. So our broking business, is completely stopped.
Okay. So everything?
We came to zero in 2001.
All the 30 crores?
All zero. All zero.
Completely?
Completely zero. And we were banned from doing any business till the investigation was over. The investigation finally 9 months later cleared us of everything. But in the 9 months we had to let go of everybody. The team, staff, everything, except for a few people who were applying to the questions from the agencies, etc. And that's where the wealth management business started in some ways, because he said, what is the one thing that we're not banned from doing? So he said, mutual funds बेच सकते हैं.
So mutual funds बेच सकते हैं, because I heard you talk about that. What exactly do you do there? So what is the business?
Are essentially, units of a trust which invests on behalf of investors. So let's say if you're an expert fund manager who knows how to pick stocks, you can get approvals to create a fund where normal people can pool in their savings to manage the money on their behalf and give them the net returns after collecting a fee.
Sure.
So that's a mutual fund. Right now, our role was that we could sell let's say you're a mutual fund, we could sell your units to normal investors saying, hey, invest in Shaurya mutual fund, who is a good manager. And then Shaurya would pay us a fee to distribute that fund.
Sure. So that is what you started doing.
So we said that's the only thing that is not banned.
तो वही कर सकते
तो
हैं.
कुछ तो revenue चाहिए. So that's how we started
Wow.
from scratch and built out. And we said, okay, to sell mutual funds, we have to give advice. How to pick mutual funds? What is the market looking like? So we built advice. So what is now called wealth management that time started as a mutual fund distribution.
Mutual fund distribution business.
And then you learn on the job, and it scaled. Thank God, that's what it's scaled.
That's good. So coming back to 2001, because I think very few people are able to sort of go through something so drastic, right? Where the business is quite large. I mean, in that day, to have such a large business, flourishing, one of the top businesses, and then to completely, I mean, you hear of downfalls, but you barely see stories or rarely see stories where it's completely zero. Now, in that time, what kept you going? What was it that, I mean, a lot of people could have sort of broken at that point, but for you and for your family, what was it that kept you all motivated? What helped you at that point?
So, I think one is, of course, it's in everything in life, it's where you focus your mind.
Okay.
And, you can choose to focus your mind on negatives, positives. And, 2001, my elder daughter was born.
So you also had
the bits of that. And so, for me, that was a big reason of joy. That gave a joy, coming home and playing with your child. And then just interest in friends. And, if you focus your mind on positives, the mind is something that you can easily focus on A or B or C. And the moment you focus on the right things versus the negative things, you will always be positively inclined. There are always challenges at work. And even at work, the way I think the team, we would celebrate small wins. So even the joy of getting our, first large customer, first milestone, every milestone that we start celebrating and acknowledging that you've achieved something.
Sure.
Right, the high that you get from selling, the dopamine rush is massive. So I think there is, my belief always been that try and focus on constructive, positive stuff, because that will keep you going and momentum keeps getting built. Because you can sit and brood about why me, why should have happened, this was unfair, what the hell, etc. But, time will pass you by, and life is, short.
If you have to break it down, to focus on the journey and focus on the small wins, I think that really sort of just helped you tide through that phase and rework. So learning, I think, is key, right? I mean, constantly trying to dig deep, learn, as you said, join the dots, and then sales. You keep sort of sharing the experience and the importance of sales, right? Now, do you think sales is important for any business and anything that you do?
Anything in life, to stay alive, you need to be able to sell.
For example?
Right? No, so in multiple ways. So, I'm selling to my colleagues to do something or not to do something. I'm selling to clients, but I'm selling to my daughters to, agree to something, or they're trying to sell to me. In our life, on a day-to-day basis, we are selling in every aspect of life. A lot of people tell me, Amit, when they were looking for jobs, I don't want to do a sales job. I want to do research. I'm very good at Excel models and, studying companies. Analysis karna hai. Sure, boss. Analysis you can do however good. End of the day, you have to communicate that idea and sell it to somebody. That's the difference between a successful research analyst and a not so successful research analyst. The ability to communicate and articulate and convince somebody of your idea. So sales is the
paramount.
You want a girlfriend, you have to sell.
Khud ko becho,
right? You have to sell. You do poetry, right? You're communicating. You're selling your concept.
Selling your thoughts, selling your ideas.
We're all selling on a daily basis in ways we don't realize that we're selling.
And how can someone learn the art of selling?
Practice. There is no, while there are courses, I don't think any courses. It's just being out there in the field, practice. But I think the first part is having conviction, because end of the day, my belief is when we're selling, we're actually selling conviction. When you deliver something communicate something with conviction, you are reading. I can say something that, hey, sorry, you should do this. This is very helpful. This is great food. But if it's coming, you want to ask me for some nutritional advice, Amit, ki kya khana chahiye, I might give it to you. But if you don't see it coming with conviction, now if I've tried it, I'm convinced, I can make those points to you, saying, I'm convinced. And then you are likely to act on that communication.
Sure.
So having done enough homework is the first part to selling, right? So how convinced are you? Because if you're convinced, it will show in your body language, in your communication,
Okay.
that if you're yourself, you know, done enough.
You need to be
deep dive,
convinced before you do
convinced. You can convince somebody else.
Sure.
Because people will see through.
Yeah. They can see through the
They can
bullshit.
see through bullshit, right? More often than not, they can see through. So which is where, if you've convinced yourself, and then you practice enough communicating, and through experience you will realize. So I've had a lot of tough experiences initially selling.
Okay.
You know,
Recall
where
a few?
Yeah, I mean, I do that tattooed on my brain. Like I had one potential customer in Hyderabad. I was where I thought I was making a fancy presentation about the global economy, etc., etc. And after 20 minutes, he said, "Wait a minute, Amit, are you done with your monologue?"
Oh, wow.
And it was such a, you land from the plane. There's the first meeting you do, and the whole day is like shit.
He actually said that to you on your face.
On my face. And he said, he's showing off my sons went to Harvard, this, that, I know all this. I'm like, okay, take away. At that point, I was very hurt. But I also realized that, hey, maybe in that conversation, he was right. I was in a monologue. I was not listening to whether he was listening. He was with me. Did I pause to take his feedback, to involve him in that conversation? So these are all things that you learn the hard way.
Sure.
So when you practice, you learn.
Very, very interesting.
Some clients will communicate back, some clients will not communicate back. So initially when you go back, you thought you had a great meeting. This client to onboard hone wala hai.
But
And then months and years would go by, no.
kuch nahi kiya.
Then you realize that, and this is again cultural things that you realize. So in India, most people don't like asking questions.
Okay.
We are trained from school days not to interrupt the teacher in class. Keep quiet, take your notes.
Chupchap karo,
baitho.
nikal jao.
So if you don't understand something, people don't ask questions. People feel shy. They don't offend. They're like, Americans will be very to the point, blunt question on your face. Indians feel shy, so they will nod their head, yeah. They'll smile and they say, okay. But they're not buying you for your product or service.
Absolutely.
So to figure that, took ages to figure that this is a trait, and the trait is different in Bombay versus Bangalore versus Delhi versus Jaipur versus Hyderabad versus Dubai. So, just picking up in those markets and you interact with people.
How do you think it's different? Any example that you can think of? Geographically, what is different?
Geographically, people, judge you in different ways, react in certain ways. So, for example, Bangalore is far more communicative. People will ask, because there you've seen a lot more of the American sort of culture creeping into the corporate world, into stuff. So people will be far more blunt and ask you honest questions.
Okay. In Bangalore.
In Bangalore.
So they're more prone to asking questions.
Hyderabad, you'll hear more about people's political connections.
Okay.
In a conversation. In Delhi, you have to give a lot of space around, people judge about what you're dressed, what watch you're wearing. So, the pricing discussion being more important than the content itself in a lot of cases. You see different cases. So I had this, friend who had it's a third person story, but you go to Dubai for business and he thought he had great meetings, and after every meeting, guy would say, Inshallah, we'll do business. And he thought he had a great meeting. But he realized after a point that Inshallah means God willing, which I'm not willing. God willing to do business, but I'm not interested. So getting, pinning people down. For example, what are the next steps after a meeting? Who will follow through? How do you need to follow through with different people in different situations? These are all skill sets. So sales is just not making a fancy communication.
So many different layers.
It's the whole sales cycle that you need to
very interesting.
fill. So some cases, you go to people and you tell them that I have something to sell. They don't want to buy it. But you tell them I have nothing to sell. This is what I do, I have nothing to sell. Then they want to buy it. That's how the big brands in the world sell.
Yeah.
So when you look at LV, Dior, etc., you're not the most welcome guy in those stores.
Absolutely.
You're like, where have I walked in? But almost by brushing your aside, they make you buy it.
Yeah. It's like they're sort of hitting at your ego, right?
For different ways, right?
Yeah.
So you don't, and there's not one way or the other, but I think picking up those things,
little cues, being
and
alert,
understanding what works with you, because end of the day, you want to be, and I think the other thing is you want to be an authentic person.
Okay.
Because you can't carry on selling if you're not authentic, because people will see through and it'll come through. So being authentic in saying, this is my personality, this is the way I've learned how different people do stuff, but this is what works for me.
Sure. But selling is something that you loved. You also enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it because the high of sales. So, for every 10 no's you get, one yes that you get, that high is very, very powerful. It drives you, like the day is made, you want to come back and celebrate.
Is it one of the most beautiful sort of highs that
Yeah,
you
it's instant dopamine rush, no, like you said,
Yeah.
so that those closures and winning clients,
Sure.
getting those things.
So when you started this mutual fund distribution, right? That is what you started with. Built it out from scratch, and if you could take us through what was the journey of that like some major milestones, team size, revenue size, how did you grow?
So, we initially revenues used to be in starting with thousands to lakhs a month.
Okay.
Lakhs a month. Today that business is it's a listed company with a market cap of close to 8,000 crores.
8,000 crores.
Yeah.
Wow.
And numbers that we couldn't dream of back then. Profits of
Unbelievable.
over 200 crores a year.
Profit of over 200 crores at the market cap of 8,000, started with scratch.
Started with scratch.
Wow.
But it's a slow journey, and you compound, essentially hold on to clients. And the initial team was 5-6 people, then 10, 15, 20 people, and largely Bombay, Bangalore, a little bit Delhi. And we then started, as we grew to about 30-35 people, we figured there's one leap that we need to take, where we need to get more professionals from the industry. So the initial core team was all homegrown people who had learned on the job along with me.
Sure.
A lot of freshers, CAs, MBAs, and
From the family also, or
not from the family.
not from the
Just complete independent professionals who had helped me build the business, and few senior professionals in different markets for us. But then for us to really keep scaling, once we had said, yeah, now we're successful enough, we are noticed, we are a player now, and we've got something that is different. Our capability set is, people really look up to what we bring to the table. How do we sort of go out and scale this? And we did two things. One is, we were sort of reinvesting cash flows at the time. So we raised our first private equity round.
What year?
From City Ventures in 2007.
2007. So 6 years after starting, it was tab tak it was all
And
self-funded.
we raised money at the parent company.
Okay.
But this is one of the principal stories that was sold. And I hired a CEO from Deutsche Bank.
Okay.
Rakesh was many years my senior. In 2007, how old was I? I was 33 and he was 54.
Okay.
Very seasoned wealth management guy. Older guy. Like, seasoned in the sense he had also done wealth management for 10 years, but an older guy, worked in Hindustan Lever, ran his own business, been in wealth management, and tried, and essentially our views matched on how we wanted to build the business. Got him on board, and we had to go from being seen as an Indian firm who had in some ways a tainted background because SEBI investigation tha, business band ho gaya, so getting clients and people wasn't necessarily easy. But we had built it. We had built it to a reasonably profitable business. I think in 2007 we were 30 crores in revenue, 5-7 crores in profits. But we said now is the time where we can, in this business, we can take
The next jump.
And getting somebody from a foreign bank, very successful, largest, at that time Deutsche Bank was the largest wealth management sort of franchise in the high net worth space. So getting one of the senior-most people there was a big thing, then making sure he survived in the system, because for 1-2 years even he was shaken up, because the move from going from a MNC to a small setup. And even today we discuss, he's still around, and we discuss, he's saying, I used to see, Chua in the cabin running around, and we used to, we couldn't put him up in 5-star hotels when we visit him. So we'd find, reasonably cheap hotels. But to handhold him, and we sort of figured the journey together, and and then we were able to hire a lot of other people from other banks.
Okay.
And the team started expanding. Today it's almost 1,000 people.
Wow.
We, hired a very bright young guy called Feroz in 2012. Made him deputy CEO very quickly.
Okay.
So those two guys are running the business now. Business went public 2021.
2021.
And today it's managing almost 50,000 crores of client money. Is one of the most profitable wealth management businesses in the country, and the most valuable, and the first business to go public from this space.
Purely wealth management.
So,
That's absolutely amazing. How does it feel to create this legacy? I mean, when you look back at it today, how's the feeling?
So of course you feel pride, because, I think what we were able to do as a team was something very, very different. So what even today the way the business is built is very different from the way everybody else does it in the industry. It's it's 180-degree apart.
Okay.
And the core insights came from, from myself, Rakesh, and all the other senior people managing clients ourselves, because we had a full-time client management role. So we would manage, I still manage 25, 30 families, all through that journey I was involved in. So it gives you the pulse on what is in the marketplace, rather than sitting and managing off Excel and PowerPoint and, people coming, giving you, doing reviews with teams. We said, yeah, humne joote ghisaoge. And there were times for 10, 12 years, I was probably taking 200 flights a year.
200
flights a year.
Wow.
So
all across the country?
All across the country. So you visit, 2 cities in a week. So morning, evening flights, so take that 6 a.m. flight into some place, and then take the 9:30, 10 return flight back, sleepy and then fly one more city. So 2 cities in a week, at least a day. Across 52 weeks, you got those, 4 flights a week, 200 plus flights. And literally, I remember going to Delhi, where my team member used to pick me up from the airport, take me for a meeting. The second team member pick me up from that meeting and take me somewhere else, and in between carry a McDonald's wrap or something for lunch. And then finally I'd be dropped off at the airport. I was like passing the parcel situation, but that's the journey. And what you pick up there is what allows you to saying, what is it that creates value for the customer, will truly create value for the customer. And sometimes customers don't know what they need. You'll ask them what they want, they'll say what they want. But sometimes figuring that, it's like, when the car was built, if Henry Ford asked somebody saying people only would ask faster horses, right? But he built a car because people don't know what they want.
Yeah.
What they really need.
Yeah.
And likewise, the iPhone got built. It wasn't that people thought they needed a touch screen. So in every business, trying to find some of these insights, and we were fortunate enough that being in the marketplace, we were able to build a lot of, small insights into how the business should be done, which is even today counterintuitive to most people who are in the business for donkey's years.
Okay. For example, could you share some?
So very simple. So a lot of people believe wealth management has to be customized for every customer.
Okay. Which would
we basically bespoke solution. We'll do custom this thing. We flipped our head and we said 99% people need the same solution. They need inflation plus returns. Right. They don't want to risk capital in the medium to long term, and they want liquidity.
बराबर.
अब ये solution चाहिए, तो why am I inventing thousands of different solutions for thousands of different? सबको एक ही let me find the best solution for all that solves this, and then convince the customer this is a solution that will work for you.
Sure.
So which is completely opposite from the way. So it's saying, it's like go to the doctor. India will say, tell you कि बस मैं custom दवाई बनाऊंगा. ये दवाई proven है, boss. It is the best performing medicine which will work on you.
Right.
That's the.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel and.
So instead of being a chemist, you be a doctor and saying this is proven.
Sure.
In a chemist, you can go and say, I want this brand, I want this brand. Can you be a doctor and saying give a solution, and if the solution works for one, right? If you're a painkiller, you know a crocin or basically paracetamol will work. Take any brand, but paracetamol is what will work at the first level, first line of treatment. That's what we did, and then trained our entire team to be able to deliver that proposition extremely well, which is very different from what even till today everyone does in the industry.
Okay.
If you go to people's website, they say we create bespoke, customized solutions. I think
what is bespoke? पहले तो आप ये समझाओ bespoke word में क्या है?
एक customized की यार, you go to a tailor and you get a bespoke suit if somebody is getting exact
measurement के
exact measurement आपको जो requirement है, हम ऐसे करेंगे. So client को पता ही नहीं उसकी requirement क्या है. If he was financially literate, he would not need you. That literate way, he knew what his requirements were.
Right.
Because some people are too conservative, some people are too aggressive, some people don't even understand financial markets well enough. So half the job is coaching them. So when you are asking somebody who is not an expert in the field, what do you want? You're asking the wrong guy. In a B2B business, let's say I'm a auto part supplier to a car company, I can go and ask them what you want because he's an expert that they know exactly what they want because they're building the car. But here I'm going to a person who doesn't know 5% of what I know and I'm asking, what do you need? I will supply to you.
Got it.
It's like doctor asking the patient, तुमको कौन सा दवाई चाहिए? You tell me.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense at all. Right.
That's the way the industry works worldwide.
Interesting. So when you got the CEO on board, what was your designation?
So I was MD. So we were sort of, working closely together. Okay. And essentially the way, as the business grows, in the initial years, I was effectively a relationship manager. I was managing clients, hundreds of clients myself, visiting regularly, to eventually saying, okay, teams are doing that more effectively. I'll handle fewer clients, but I'll focus on what we need to do, products we need to do for this quarter, this year. Then you have CEO in place, he starts to do all of that. Then you're saying, यार 1-2 साल में मुझे critical कहाँ चीजें करनी है. Then when you're deputy CEO in, we essentially split it where he would look at the quarter and the year. The CEO would look at that as well as look at people issues, cultural issues, strategic issues. And I started focusing on what will change the business 3 to 5 years from now. So I got freed from
you got some time to
saying, let me take bets. We can change the business
for the next 3 to 5 years.
Next 3 to 5 years. Every, it depends the role. So idea is when you play the team, right? You seeing the World Cup live right now, and the Indian team is doing very well. And you see the batting roles have changed. So today the way Rohit Sharma is playing as an aggressive, very aggressive, which was not his track record in the past few World Cups, etc.
Sure.
But because now his role is different from Virat Kohli's role. So essentially, when the team grows, how do you figure the roles that everyone is playing?
Individual. Sure. So 3 questions here. One is, as a 33-year-old, you're getting in someone who's much more experienced, has seen it all. How do you sort of navigate that? Because you're still the MD, so you also have to drive him. But you're younger, he has more experience. So how did you manage that? 2 is, how were you able to get someone from an MNC, get comfortable and get him onboarded in the first place? Because not a lot of them are comfortable doing that. And how did you keep him involved? And then the third one is, when you're scaling up rapidly, how do you still keep controls over the business? Because, when it's a small team, direct contact, there is control. But, once you're multiplying, how do you still keep controls on the business?
Sure. So, the first part is to hire anybody. And when somebody is, not within your easy sort of pool of people that you can pick from who will naturally, or scaling up to come to you as an organization. But when you're asking people to step down from larger organizations to come into you, or very successful organizations to come to you, end of the day, it comes down to the belief in you and the passion of why you're doing it. And is there a shared passion around the way the business should be done?
Okay.
So there's this very interesting Simon Sinek, very popular TED talk around the why, how and what of businesses.
Okay.
And sometimes the why is the most critical thing, because at an emotional level, that's what people are buying.
The why.
The why. Not the what you're doing and how you're doing it, but why you're doing it.
Okay.
The why of every business and that belief is the critical thing. And and what's worked for me when I've hired a lot of senior people is laying out, these are my beliefs. This is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I want to build and do. And if you find a meeting ground, and in this case it worked, that we had, our first meeting was like for 4 or 5 hours, spent just discussing the business and how business should be done. Then when you understand that there is a meeting of minds, that we clearly are very passionate about the same things. Your approaches might not be very similar, but you're passionate about the same things. And second, does the chemistry gel as individuals, where I think the biggest thing is, one of the key attributes that I think is important in this world is to be, to be successful, even in the business world, is to have humility in all your interactions, right? So it's you're discussing ideas and not what the idea is important, logic is important, not where it's coming from.
Okay.
And fortunately, I was able to get a set of people around me who believed in the same thing. So it didn't matter where the thought process is coming from, as long as the logic wins over seniority.
Sure.
Right? Because you believe of why you're doing this business, that is the core around, everyone's aligned to a cause. कि ये कर रहे हैं इसलिए कर रहे हैं. So whether Amit ने बोला या Shaurya ने बोला does not matter. Does it add to the cause, and does everyone agree that it's logical? Then we will.
Sure.
So that
is key.
So making sure that in any business, making sure that the leadership team is aligned on what you're trying to do as a business, and spending time with them, discussing it again and again and again. What you stand for, what are you trying to, why you doing this? That is critical. Once that is there, then you can navigate. I think age is a number, and of course you need to know the business, right? If you've done it in and out, people respect you for the skill set that you bring. And as a team player, what you have to understand also is that everyone brings different skill sets. So I was, let's say, a great product guy, great numbers guy. Rakesh was a superb sales guy, EQ guy. So a lot of things you pick up and you align and say, okay, his ability to simplify stuff was phenomenal.
Sure.
So you play on each other's strengths and let everyone focus on their strengths and collectively bring it out as a team. That worked very well for us.
Sure.
I think in that, I think the sort of third question was more around controls. I think it's important, very important to have controls, but I think it's sometimes people get overly lost in trying to control.
Okay.
In business, you have to figure what are A category items in terms of what's going to drive value in the business in terms of revenue, profits, whatever it is, and what's your A category risk.
Okay.
And in a lot of businesses, there are too many such factors. A category, if you define, वो हर एक business में एक दो चीज ही होती है. There are a lot of B category items. There are thousands of C category items. Now, there is one school, management school, which wants to control everything to the last.
ABC, सब
ABC,
जो भी हो रहा है.
Organizations are stuck in reviews, MIS, formats in multiple times, and then you focus on what's in the A category item. What will make, sometimes just narrowing down and focusing on fewer things is far more important.
Okay.
Than trying to I think process is over, sort of the whole control process, in my view, is in some way it creates too much bureaucracy and sometimes does not stay in touch with the times, right? Because business is changing, environment is changing. And I'll give you one anecdotal story which I give to people.
Okay.
So there's this story about 4 monkeys who are around a tree.
हाँ.
So this one monkey tries to climb the tree, and जैसे वो चढ़ता है ऊपर, बाकी तीनों के ऊपर पानी गिरता है.
हाँ.
So they wonder what happened. He comes back down. Second time he tries to climb,
again
पानी फेंकते हैं. Third time he tries to climb, they pull him down because they say, yes, we don't want to get wet again. Okay. Now all the 4 monkeys know that ऊपर जाता है तो पानी गिरेगा. Now slowly, one by one, the monkey gets replaced by some other monkey. Now the new monkey has come in. He tries to climb the tree. He is pulled down. He doesn't know why. And soon all the 4 monkeys have been changed. But everyone knows ये पेड़ पे नहीं चढ़ने का. Nobody knows why. But because it was, वो control process से हो गया
था.
वो continue हो रहा है.
Got it.
It's like people have, when you walk into most offices, they have this registered outside of visitor register. In most companies, I go around Mickey Mouse from Donald, and Donald Duck from Disney.
लिख के आता हूँ ऐसा.
मैं लिख के आता हूँ. Because कौन देखता है boss? So first thing is, setting a new office, I said, I don't want this register system.
नहीं चाहिए.
What are you trying to control? Just because somebody decided कि register होना चाहिए, and the security guard needs to feel important, receptionist needs to feel important कि नहीं sir आप register में जाके entry करो, mobile number लिखो, official या personal, who checks it? I've never seen a company where somebody is going to go to the register and check, and what are you controlling? But the process हो गया,
तो अभी सब follow करें.
वो सब follow करते हैं. So lot of stuff done in my view just out of pure, it's idiotic in many ways. So as an entrepreneur, you have to figure saying what's my A category. B, C, let somebody else do it, but don't, because sometimes there's a huge overload and restricts the nimbleness of the firm.
Sure.
So focus on the A category items that can bring you down.
Okay.
Either can change your fortunes into the growth, and what are the A category items that can
bring you down.
So
take you up.
It's like you want to stay on the wicket to bat the next day. खेलेंगे तो run बना ही लेंगे. You don't want to get out.
Sure.
What's the risk that will get you out? Those are risks you focus on. And the other element to this also is, I think, a culture of trust and empowerment.
Okay.
So if there are 2 operating guidelines that people have. One is a starting point of saying I'll start with a position of distrust in a new relationship, or I start with a position of trust. When I distrust, I need to control.
Sure.
Report back to me, क्या किया, how many meetings did you do,
review
how many hours did you spend,
weekly review करो,
weekly review, तुमने कितना धंधा किया, नहीं किया. Versus trusting people. But trust is not like a blind trust, but also first making sure that they share the values and the passion to what you're doing, and then trusting people that they'll go out and do it.
Okay.
And letting them make the decision कि यार तुमको, so we never had approval systems कि यार मुझे यहाँ से वहाँ टैक्सी में जाओ कि उबर लेके जाओ कि or should I take a flight here or stay in XY hotel? Because you're your own entrepreneur, तू decide तक.
अच्छा तो आपने वो rule नहीं था कि employees को सिर्फ taxi
कि ये approval वो approval. Because if you treat people with trust, 99% people will give
Show
you
that
back
trust
that trust, show that respect to that trust, and actually respond in a manner which is usually beneficial to the organization. There'll be 1% scoundrels who will do some silly shit. But to prevent that 1%, what happens is most organizations end up penalizing 99%, and putting so many things in place
Sure.
that eventually most people are only filling out forms and approvals and cursing somebody, because you cannot, human beings are smart enough to adapt so you have to trust them. So that's the other element of saying, if you trust people as a starting point, and you spend enough time to train them, create shared values, you don't need to
You don't need to control so much. I think that's very interesting. One is the why is critical, right? So when you're building an organization, when you're hiring, even if it's someone more experienced, get the why right, share the passion. As an entrepreneur, focus on a category, which is basically your main drivers or your main risks.
So I'll give you an example, right? On this A category, B category. Like as entrepreneurs, you might have, let's say, 4 different sub business lines or SKUs that you're focusing on, in business, right? And one business is losing money, and one business is growing very well. I see a lot of entrepreneurs saying, no, how can this business lose money? Let me focus all my energies in trying to turn around that one business which is losing money. That is like, I have to win at all costs, even though the business is losing money. Versus the way I like to think is saying, if I spend the same hours on my business that is making money, I can grow that 4x. This will not matter. Right
Correct.
now, let me grow and focus on my strengths of what is actually growing, then focusing on that one niggling.
Sure.
So where am I spending my time? So I could spend my time, for example, back in saying, has this guy spent 5,000 rupees extra on that hotel stay? And which means I have to spend time checking it, all those things, expenses, vouchers, versus saying, 1 घंटा मेरे को एक meeting और कर लेता हूँ यार, we can make, quite a few lakhs or crores in revenue.
Sure.
Where do I want to spend my time?
Where do you want to spend your time? Very, very true. Very interesting. Very true. And so you played the whole innings with Anand Rathi, successful IPO, the largest, I think the most profitable wealth management company now in the country, 8,000 crore market cap. And now you've also decided to take a new stint and start something on your own again, which is QI Capital. So could you share what your insight was with QI Capital, what you all are doing, and what's been the journey like in the last 2-3 years that you all have started?
So, in markets and investing, what everyone is trying to do is get an edge over the market, which is called alpha in financial terms. That if the market is giving 15% return, can I make 18? Can I make 19? Can I beat the average guy in the market?
Sure.
That's the alpha. The way to do it historically was, people said, let's do research, let's study companies, balance sheets, find ways to, find better companies, avoid mistakes, and build alpha, which worked for a period of time, continues to work, but gradually we are seeing that very diminishing returns because the whole market is now doing the same thing to that process. So if you're in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you made tons of money because, very few people are doing the quality of research that is being done now. But now 95% of the market is doing the same research.
Sure.
Or the money that is in the market in terms of money terms is doing the same level of research. At the same time, in the early 90s, you saw this whole movement coming out of, especially the US, where academicians said that end of the day, markets are nothing but, data points, time series, etc. And we can use mathematical models and models coming out of physics to predict and find patterns and trade those markets.
Okay.
So a lot of people got into this field from the academics world, and some of the world's most successful investors today, or former professors, PhDs, etc., who are running globally successful, hedge funds. In fact, I just saw news right now that the guy called Ken Griffin, runs one of the world's largest firms.
Okay.
Is building the most expensive home in the world right now in Palm Beach, which one side ocean, one side lake. But these are guys who are making tons of money. Clearly, they were doing something phenomenally right over the last 30, 40 years. And what they've been doing is essentially using statistical models to find patterns and predict market behavior. And over a period of time, also introducing technology to automate that process.
Okay.
So earlier you can see, you can build your models, see what to buy, what to sell, and then trade manually. Now instead of trading manually, machines are trading for you. And machines are also starting to do the analysis for you and find patterns. So this whole world of what we call quant investing, and my belief has been that that is the future, and that is going to be the next 20 years where the edge will be. And the reason also is that most people in the markets who run or manage monies, etc., don't have the inherent skill set to migrate to this. If I'm a chartered accountant, I didn't study balance sheets. Now I can study balance sheets and research and invest. It's fairly commonsensical to research and invest. You don't need too much technical skills. But here you need hardcore mathematics, statistics, machine learning, people applying worlds, theories from black hole physics models into the mathematics here to try and, predict stuff. Very fairly deep, machine learning, large language models at play. There's a lot of technology where, you're trying to create what is called, ultra low latency trading. So you're trading extremely fast in nanoseconds.
Okay.
So nanosecond is a billionth of a second. So computers trading for you in billions of seconds speed. And so you do custom design chips, custom design hardware to be able to execute. Now those skill sets don't exist with the traditional people in the financial markets as well. This comes from engineering, math, physics, statistics world.
Sure.
And what I'm trying to do at QI Cap is essentially play that bridge of bringing these two worlds together.
Okay.
And saying, can we have a first move advantage in building the firm of the future?
Okay.
The next 10, 20 years, can you do something which is really path-breaking? And at a global scale.
Global scale. That's what you want to.
That's the other attempt right now because, like you saw, most IT services firms, India has become the biggest software services, destination in the world. And that wasn't always the case. Almost when you go back in history, almost all the senior guys were people who worked with the big US companies. IBM, Accenture, वहाँ से छोड़ के people started there, came back to India saying, let's start a shop, and then today you have the Infosys, Wipro, TCS of the world, and thousands of companies around that. Likewise, in this whole quant investing space, global firms are very large, but my sense is 30-40% of the talent pool is Indian, typically, or IIT engineers who've gone there working in those shops. So India will eventually also become a superpower in quant investing because this is the factory where the talent is, biggest pool of talent is coming out from.
Okay. So you feel like the next 20-30 years is a time for Indian quant investing to really boom?
To really, I would say dominate. As we have a chance to actually dominate the world globally.
Amazing. And how do you, you've obviously not had a lot of experience in this field. Now, how did you manage, or how are you managing running a company that requires, such minute sort of knowledge, attention as a founder yourself?
So, really, this is where you put on your entrepreneur hat.
Okay.
And I say connect the dots. So I understand enough about everything and piecing that puzzle together. So I said, what are the things that are needed? So I need, people who bring this serious skill set and who are the top of what India has today. So I went around, meeting everybody in the industry, found a great team, which have become my co-founders in this business. So I got them in as co-founders.
Okay, you directly brought them in as co-founders.
It's a partnership. And we said, okay, now we've got a full talent suite where I bring in traditional wealth management, financial markets expertise, the entrepreneurial side. And here are guys who are, who've got the core technical skills to build this. And collectively we built a team underneath and continue to put in places, pieces where, we've got, for example, a very senior US talent right now advising us on some advanced AI-based methods. So this is some former professor of mine who's an authority in the space. So you say, okay, can you come and spend, 10, 12 hours a month with us, guide us. Likewise, you're trying to hire people with different skill sets in different ways and saying, as an entrepreneur, you have a jigsaw puzzle in front of you. You're saying, let me put the pieces together because I've got a strategy in mind and you're trying to fill the jigsaw puzzle so that and keep executing there and empower the team. So my job is, so it's again like a team play. Everyone's got, in my co-founders and myself, we've got our roles and responsibilities clearly set out, but there's a shared vision. There's a shared vision of what we want to achieve. And, God willing, we should.
I think that's, again, from your last takeaway, why and then trust, right? I think that is what is helping you even in QI Capital, where You got the team, now you're trusting them. Each person knows what they're doing. And then you build it together now as a team.
Yeah. And there'll be ups and downs, in every business journey. But I think collectively as, the team, for them to understand and trust each other and stay the journey only happens when you spend that time to build that shared value system.
Sure. And what's your goal now? I mean, looking forward, do you have sort of some plan in mind of where you want to see it go? The number, is there a fixed sort of number in mind, or it's just a journey that you're enjoying?
It's a journey because, we can get to, if somebody asks me wealth management business could have become, if I would have been happy if somebody said 20,000 crores bhi ho jayega when I was at 1,000 crores. I would have been extremely happy, but today it's 50,000 crores and will continue to grow. Likewise for this business, I don't think, it's what I do focus on is more shorter term goals, saying can we achieve this in the next 1-2 quarters? Because right now we're at that stage in the business.
Sure.
Where I don't have the luxury of saying, let me plan 5 years. So right now we're executing. So there's a big picture view, but within that big picture view, there's a very quarterly sort of view of what we want to try and achieve and solve, problems that are here and now. But if we can keep solving it, growth apne aap aa jata hai.
Sure.
So, you can look back 5 years later and saying, if you've done well, it should add up to something significant.
Absolutely. I wish you all the best for
Thank you.
QI Capital. And I think to sum up this podcast on a lighter note, I think we could spend just 5 minutes on one of our common loves, which is the world of poetry and Urdu. So how did you, I mean, आपने उर्दू सीखा, you took classes, गज़ल सीखा, तो ये कहाँ से शुरू हुआ?
I think ghazals everyone loves listening to.
हाँ.
And COVID times, fortunately, we had fair amount of non-commute time that was sitting there idle, and a friend found this one teacher out of Chandigarh who was willing to do it on Zoom. We said, heck, why not? Life mein kabhi chance milne wala hai to learn Urdu or ghazals.
हाँ.
So do that. Yeah. So I keep every 6 months, 1 year, I'm trying something
new
to experiment with. So this was one of those things. So a lot of things sometimes I drop. I get to a point where 70-80%. So
reach 70-80%,
so
and then
I learned, like, for example, flying. I had 10 hours, 15 hours away from getting a license. I said, okay, I'm done. I understood flying
मतलब
flying a plane like a
oh wow,
single engine,
वो भी सीखा.
वो सीखा, windsurfing थोड़ा सीखा, अभी mountaineering वाला चल रहा है. But the few things that stay.
Yeah.
So DJing is one thing that
stayed.
So, but the idea is that you keep doing something. DJing and spirituality are two things where I'm continuously sort of spending a lot of time learning.
Sure.
But outside of that, there's a to-do list. For example, I'm trying to find a chef who can teach me pizza making right from dough to and like a fine, not like a
Like a good
yeah. So I got a wood-fired oven at home. So that's to-do list. Last year I went to Ladakh, did a lot of bike riding, bought a bike now, so I want to learn more and more off-roading now. Just finished an Everest base camp trek.
Yeah.
And very inspired to start mountaineering a little bit. So we'll start, 2-3 year journey of learning some skills. I don't know how long I'll last.
Sure.
But my thought process is that keep experimenting because it keeps you young, keeps your brain, charged up. There's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
When you come back home, there's something that you focus on, and learning is the biggest high, that you get. And it keeps you, some people think it's midlife crisis. I'm like, I don't want to be old, ever. And so, last year it was fitness.
Yeah. You got a 6-pack ab,
so
ripped body.
So it went through a whole journey where you learn nutrition, you learn your own body and how it reacts and stuff like that. 3 years before that is veganism and the whole journey towards that. So these are things that I keep playing around with. Some things stick, some things don't. But the idea is to keep playing around with new ideas and
Sure. Just keeping on learning, keeping on challenging yourself. Because I think it's so important because, now there's a lot of talk about healthy aging and neuroprotective activities where how do you keep your, brain young for maximum amount of time. And I think there's a lot of research gone into say that, okay, learning and keeping on challenging yourself, trying new things, pushing yourself. I mean, that's one of the key factors. there's this one sher which came to mind ki धूप में निकलो घटाओं में नहाकर देखो. जिंदगी क्या है किताबों को हटा कर देखो. I think you're living that life where you're sort of, so many experiences, so many new challenges.
बचपन में बहुत किताबें पढ़ ली तो
Abhi enjoying life. But thank you so much. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on
Thank you,
Living
Shone.
Legacies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.